press the red button?
Yeah, it's on already.
No, it's on already.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll take my hand out of the camera.
And you've seen it before anyway, so you know.
That's right. I can concentrate
So
hard.
is this a premiere?
No, I did it last week at the Folk House.
Oh, right.
To much acclaim.
Much claim.
It's a premiere in the forest then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Local premiere.
This side of the river, it's the
Yeah.
It's all technical tonight,
It's
isn't
all
it?
technical,
Goodness me.
yeah. And the railway has already been mentioned, and we've had plane travel, haven't we?
Yeah,
the
we
vagaries
have.
of train travel. So this story, well, as we local people, we happy local people know, for about 150 years, there's been through Gloucestershire, through the Gloucestershire countryside, there's been a train track snaking, following the River Severn, north of the River Severn and south of the Forest of Dean for 170 years, day and night, passengers and goods trains, mostly of course over the last, most of those 150 years, steam, of course, steam powered. And there we have it, you see, again, I've run out of things to say, well I've still got cranky to crank, so there's a timing issue there, so you can see there, there's the beautiful golden hue of the Cotswolds, and you look over the river, it's dark and the dark and mysterious Forest of Dean there. And so if any foreigners, people from Tewkesbury or Cirencester, and you want to know, you want a better, closer, you want to know a larger scale, we're talking about this area here. Yeah. And you'll see that this is the kind of map that our geography teacher, Mr. Ryan, used to draw. And he likes to reduce everything down to triangles, if he could. And I don't know, as an 11-year-old boy, you found that very funny. And he also used that method how to tell the difference between stalactites and stalagmites. Tights come down, eh boys? Tights come down, eh boys? Hey! In a way that probably isn't allowed these days. And what he should have said was if you're drawing a box and putting the word inside, make sure and think how big the word's letters going to be. Make sure you've got room at the end to fit them all in. So in this case, this is railway signs. So this is Chepstow. This is you will find that following the River Severn, and there's Wollaston. There, and there's the village of Arr on the Severn there, where the pirates commute from, presumably. And if you go further on, you see the remains. Well, it used to be the site of the Severn Railway crossing, which the beautiful bridge, expansive bridge with the river, was destroyed one night in the 1960s when a barge got loose and sailed down to one of the spans and destroyed it. Rather tragic, and there you are. But time can mend all things. My dad and my Uncle Bob were working on the line, and they were one of the first people to arrive at the scene of the tragedy. And so the line carries on to Gloucester there. So my dad changed jobs on the railway, and worked as a signalman and a crossing keeper at Lydney Signal Box at Lydney's train station near the town of Lydney. It's good when the plan comes together, isn't it? Those Victorian railway engineers knew what they were doing, didn't they? You couldn't get much past them. They're the old Victorian railway engineers. During the days of steam. There you are. And
there he goes.
And there he is. There he is. And you can miss a train these days, can't you? But those Victorian Railway, they very, very seldom missed a station. Every single station they did, they started off in Chepstow, and we're 2 degrees wrong in the wrong direction. Start again, boys. That never happened, did it? And you can't fault their pragmatism. So for 150 years. The men, it was all men in the signal box, they would be men, they manned the signal box, and kept the crossing safe for the people of Lydney, who weren't very grateful. because they wanted to get home, of course, in there. And there's the. You'll notice the hand gestures haven't changed. The grateful hand gestures of the people of Lydney haven't changed over the years. So when I first went to see my dad working in the signal box in about 1907, yeah, I am a golden-haired child.
Oh.
You wouldn't believe it, would you? And I climbed up the steps, and there was my dad waiting. He always had a happy wave to the people in the signal box. And back in the 1970s, it was still had the heavy engineering stuff, all the old levers, fill the station, fill the signal box. And my dad worked there for 40 years, as I say. And on shifts, mornings, afternoons and nights. So my dad, that's a third of 40 years, like 13, my dad stayed awake for 13 years. Yeah, I know, hard to believe, isn't it? And fueled mostly by many copious cups of tea and toast on the two-bar electric fire there. The British Rail had given them. There they are. That's toasting the. So my poor dad spent 13 years awake. And I haven't found a way of making them go in yet, unfortunately. I have to do it by hand when they come round the back. There you are. Oh. So, never mind. So when my dad first started, 40 years, he was retired 20 years, so 60 years ago when he first started, there's the Welsh train, yakety-da, 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 you can hear it go, the Welsh steam train. And of course then back then you had to hand operate the gates. If there's a train coming, you had to rush down and close the gates and go back up again. There's my dad waving at the people. And of course eventually the steam trains were replaced by diesel. And in about 1970, there's my dad. He had to hold on when it wave out the window. They went for something quicker. And even my dad had long hair in the 1970s, you can see. And there's his kipper tie in the wind, and his hair, hairy armpits, and the hand-operated gates were replaced by barriers, and all the lovely old Victorian stuff was taken away and was replaced by a completely electronic system. There was. You could tell exactly where all the trains were, and there were lights and switches, and it looked very much like a Bond villain's lair, the inside of the station there, and because we were very easily impressed in the 1970s. And there's the station cat. The delayed 007 service to Swansea. We've been expecting you, Mr. Bond, or something like that. And then 10 years later, all that new stuff was because of progress. All that was taken out, and the whole system became automated. But they thought it was best to have one person there guarding you've got to have the human element. You can't lose the human element, can you? So that was replaced by one single buzzer, the emergency manual override button, which somebody guarded day and night. But eventually, 10 years later, even that became obsolete, and the whole of the signalling system for the southwest of England was outsourced to one 14-year-old boy in Mumbai who did it with the left hand on the Amstrad. So after 150 years, the signal box was abandoned and returned to nature in the Forest of Dean. And eventually it was torn down. There was no sign that anybody had spent any time. My dad spent 40 years, and presumably some more poor anonymous workers had spent their whole lives working there. And there was no sign of that whatsoever. And the site returned to nature. But thankfully my father was retired before that, and to show their gratitude, the British Rail allowed my father to choose a gift from their retirement gift catalogue, which had was Betterware Tipex out at the front. And my father, he could have, because he accrued the most number of points by looking after the points most of the way up to Crewe, he could have got the best star prize. But instead, for some reason we never quite understand, he chose two lesser prizes. And he chose 2-inch model, 3-inch model of a scale model of Sopwith Camel, a World War I biplane, and a wall-mounted barometer in an ornate thing of the finest pinette. And so for 40 years' work, the 4-inch scale model of a Sopwith Camel was encased in a glass paperweight. So for my father, 40 years hard work, he had a barometer and a paperweight. So well worth the effort. And so what was my father meant to do during his declining years? He would get up every morning and make a note of the air pressure, write it on a piece of paper and weight it down with the paperweight. And eventually they would get that stack of papers will get so big. I went over the board here. I'm like this. Isn't hardly believable, this bit, is it? The stack became so big that the meagre paperweighting abilities of the glass paperweight with the Sopwith Camel bit reached breaking point, and the whole stack wobbled and tottered and then collapsed, meaning the glass paperweight shattered on the ground, and the 3-inch scale model of the Sopwith Camel would have flown out the window, never to be seen again.
Oh.
Now this is why I've never had a proper job. That and laziness, of course. That's the main point. So now you might think, I don't want you to get confused with that other story in a Ronnie Corbett 1970 who sat in the chair going away. Don't get confused with the other story of the man who spent 40 years working in the signal box and without any hint of a promotion. But he thought, if I don't go for it now, I never will. So he decided to go up to London to railway headquarters to take the railway signalman's grade A exam, which turned out to be an oral exam with just one question. And the invigilator said, you're in your signal box, and you find to your horror there's an express train hurtling down from the north, going at 50 miles an hour. It's 10 miles away. This is not on a strike day, obviously. There was no industrial action on this particular day. It was a very different test, wouldn't it be, on a strike day? At the same time, there's a train, an intercity speedy train coming up from south, going at 180 miles an hour, at 10 miles an hour. What do you do to avert a horrible head-on collision? Well, he said, that's easy. I press the emergency manual override button, don't I? Well, he said, what if the emergency manual override button doesn't work? Well, I said, I run downstairs, out of the signal box, 20 yards up the road, there's the lever, there's the points lever. I pull that, and the southbound train goes on the emergency. There's 5 miles of emergency track around the back, and it goes slowly to a halt, and nobody's. And well, what if the points lever has been stolen? Well, I rush back in. I go back under the cupboard and the stairs, and find the red flags on the sticks, and I run up the line shouting, for pity's sake, stop, stop, stop. Well, he says, what if the moths have been at the wooden handles, and the wood lice have eaten the cloth? Well, he said, I rush over the road to the railway cottages and get my Uncle Frank. And he said, what would your Uncle Frank do? He said, well, nothing, but he's never seen a train crash before. So, I wouldn't want you to get confused between those two stories. Don't get confused with those two stories. Unfortunately, the second one's a lot better than the first one, but never mind. So, Billy Connolly. That was, you could tell from the quality. That's, yes.
Hooray!